Why reading is so important. Leo felt the weight of unspoken words every single day. His dream of conversing freely in English seemed an impossible peak, shrouded in mist. Each morning, the same silent struggle began. He longed to express his thoughts, to join discussions, to truly connect, but fear often cemented his lips shut. The language barrier felt insurmountable, a relentless personal challenge. He yearned to understand podcasts, to watch movies without subtitles, and to participate in global conversations. The world felt smaller, yet his own world remained constrained by linguistic limits. This isolation, born from a lack of confidence in his English skills, gnawed at him constantly. He knew deep down he was capable, but the how eluded him. The initial attempts to learn English had often ended in frustration. Textbooks felt dry, grammar rules seemed endless, and vocabulary lists quickly faded from memory. He'd open a language app, only to close it minutes later, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information. The path to fluency appeared foggy and impossibly long. Every interaction requiring English became a source of anxiety. He would rehearse sentences in his head, only for them to crumble the moment he needed to speak. His accent felt too strong, his vocabulary too limited, his sentence structure too clumsy. These daily encounters only amplified his feeling of being stuck. He knew, my daily day's struggle was becoming unsustainable. He couldn't keep avoiding opportunities, shrinking from conversations, or relying on others to translate. A fundamental change in his approach was desperately needed. This was more than just learning a language, it was about reclaiming his voice and his potential. One evening, a glimmer of hope emerged while browsing online. He stumbled upon an article titled, "Why Reading is So Important." It wasn't just about passing exams, it argued, but about natural acquisition. The idea intrigued him, offering a new perspective on an old, seemingly tedious activity he had previously avoided. His initial skepticism was strong. How could silently reading a book improve his speaking? The article explained that reading provides consistent exposure to correct grammar and sentence patterns, almost subconsciously. It builds a vast passive vocabulary that eventually becomes active. This concept began to resonate deeply with him. He decided to start small, very small. He didn't pick up a complex novel, but rather simple children's stories and easy news articles online. He focused on understanding the general meaning, not every single word. This low-pressure approach made the task feel much more manageable and less intimidating than before. Slowly, reading transformed from a chore into a quiet pleasure. He discovered authors he enjoyed, topics that fascinated him. The act of reading became a meditative practice, a peaceful escape into new worlds while simultaneously building his language foundation. This consistent engagement was surprisingly effective. Reading helped him connect words to concepts, not just translations. He started seeing how words naturally combined in phrases and expressions. This contextual learning was far more powerful than isolated vocabulary lists. His brain began to forge deeper connections, making recall much easier over time. It exposed him to natural sentence structures and idiomatic expressions that textbooks rarely taught in an engaging way. He began to internalize the rhythm and flow of English prose. This consistent exposure made unfamiliar grammar patterns slowly feel intuitive, transforming abstract rules into practical understanding. Reading improved his comprehension speed and silent processing. He could grasp complex ideas more quickly, even without speaking them aloud. This silent fluency was a critical stepping stone. It laid the mental groundwork, preparing his mind for the eventual leap into confident verbal communication with others. He started seeing patterns, not just individual words or disjointed sentences. The language began to make holistic sense, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. This broader understanding was pivotal, allowing him to anticipate meanings and infer context even when encountering new vocabulary in texts. Reading became his quiet sanctuary for language immersion, a personal bubble of English. He could spend hours without feeling self-conscious or pressured. This private practice space was invaluable for building confidence without the fear of judgment from others, nurturing his budding linguistic abilities daily. It was undeniably the foundation, the building blocks for everything else he aspired to achieve. Without this consistent input, his output would always remain limited. Reading provided the rich linguistic environment his brain craved to truly flourish and develop naturally over time. It was indispensable. Next, he confronted the intimidating challenge of speaking. The question, how to talk at home to yourself, popped into his mind, seemingly ridiculous at first. Yet, an inspiring online community suggested it was a vital step for overcoming shyness and building oral fluency in a safe environment. Feeling incredibly awkward at first, he stood in front of his mirror. He began describing his reflection, the clothes he wore, the items in his room. It felt strange and silly, but he persevered, determined to push past the initial discomfort. This self-consciousness gradually began to dissipate. He moved on to narrating his daily actions aloud in English. I'm making coffee, I'm opening the door, I'm checking my email. Simple sentences, repeated and varied, helped him practice basic structures and common verbs. This constant vocalization was surprisingly effective for improving pronunciation. He started practicing imaginary conversations, role-playing dialogues with himself. He would be both interviewer and interviewee, customer and shop assistant. This allowed him to anticipate questions and formulate responses, preparing him for real-life interactions without the pressure of a real audience. This self-talk built crucial muscle memory in his mouth, tongue, and brain. His articulation became clearer, his pauses more natural. The physical act of producing English sounds became less effortful and more automatic. It was training his vocal apparatus for fluent expression. It allowed him to make mistakes without public embarrassment, a huge relief. He could correct himself immediately, experiment with different phrases, and repeat difficult words until they felt natural. This freedom to fail privately accelerated his learning process significantly. He began to think in English more frequently, even silently, without consciously trying. His internal monologue, once predominantly in his native language, slowly started shifting. This cognitive immersion meant he was processing thoughts directly in English, bypassing translation entirely. This daily ritual became less strange and more empowering over time. He noticed a significant improvement in his spontaneity and ability to form sentences without hesitation. The comfort he found in self-talk directly translated into greater confidence when facing actual conversations with others. His internal monologue slowly but surely shifted to his target language. He would problem solve, plan his day, and even dream in English sometimes. This was a profound indicator of his growing fluency and immersion, a truly exciting personal milestone he had achieved through consistent effort. How to think and speak became an internalized, automatic practice for him. It wasn't just about translating words anymore, but about forming thoughts directly in English. This cognitive shift was a game changer, allowing for more natural and fluid communication without mental barriers. The struggle with forgetting new words was persistent. How to remember words. He'd learn a dozen new terms one day, only to find them elusive the next. Rote memorization proved ineffective, leading to frustration and a sense of hitting a wall in his progress and vocabulary growth. Flashcards were a start, but often felt mechanical and dull, lacking context. He realized that isolated words were hard to retain. His method needed to evolve beyond simple rote learning to truly integrate new vocabulary into his active linguistic framework and daily usage patterns. He learned to use new words immediately in sentences, even simple ones. Creating original sentences with unfamiliar terms forced his brain to process them actively. This application deepened his understanding and made the words stick much more effectively in his long-term memory. Connecting new vocabulary to existing knowledge, images, or personal experiences proved incredibly powerful. He would visualize the word, link it to a memory, or associate it with an emotion. This personalized approach made learning much more engaging and memorable than before. Spaced repetition apps became invaluable for retention. Tools like Anki, which present words at optimal intervals, ensured he reviewed vocabulary just before he was about to forget it. This scientifically proven method significantly boosted his long-term recall rates consistently. Reviewing words in context from his reading material was particularly powerful. When he encountered a new word in a book, he'd note it down, then revisit the original sentence. This reinforced the meaning and usage, making the vocabulary feel natural within a linguistic setting. He created silly mnemonic devices for tricky words, linking them to humorous or absurd mental images. The more vivid and personal the association, the easier the word was to recall, even days or weeks later. This playful approach made learning enjoyable. Actively recalling words, not just passively recognizing them, became his mantra. Instead of just reading definitions, he'd try to produce the word from memory when prompted. This active retrieval practice strengthened the neural pathways associated with the vocabulary, improving retention. Consistency in vocabulary review, even just 5 minutes a day, yielded remarkable results. He didn't need long, exhaustive sessions. Short, regular bursts of practice kept the words fresh in his mind, preventing them from slipping away into the vast sea of forgotten knowledge. Slowly but surely, his active vocabulary expanded and became more robust. He started recognizing familiar words everywhere, in conversations, articles, and videos. This growing command over words empowered him, making communication significantly smoother and more expressive. My daily day's struggle was still very real, but it had transformed. The struggle wasn't against an insurmountable barrier, but rather a consistent, manageable challenge. He had good days and bad days, but the overall trajectory was clearly upwards, filled with hope. There were days of discouragement, feeling slow or stuck, when progress seemed to halt. He learned to accept these plateaus as part of the learning journey, not as signs of failure. Resilience became his strongest ally during these inevitable dips in motivation. But he had a routine now, a path to follow consistently, rain or shine. Reading, self-talk, vocabulary review, and listening were integrated into his daily life. This structured approach provided stability and ensured continuous, albeit sometimes slow, progress toward his goals. Integrating "Listen English" became crucial for naturalness and understanding native speakers. Reading provided visual input, but listening refined his auditory comprehension. He realized that truly understanding a language required both visual and oral mastery. He started with podcasts and YouTube channels on topics he enjoyed, even if he didn't grasp every word. He then moved to movies without subtitles initially, focusing on the gist, then rewatching with subtitles to catch details. This layered approach was effective. Active listening became a key skill. He didn't just let English wash over him, he consciously tried to grasp main ideas, then specific details. He'd pause, replay, and even shadow speakers to mimic their intonation and rhythm, making listening a productive exercise. Immersion in sound helped his ear tune into new accents, speech speeds, and intonation patterns. He discovered nuances he hadn't noticed before, which significantly improved his comprehension in real-life conversations. His auditory perception sharpened over time. It complemented his reading and self-talk perfectly, truly making his learning holistic. The words he read came alive when he heard them. The phrases he practiced speaking sounded more natural after he heard native speakers use them. Everything interconnected powerfully. He understood spoken English much better than before, no longer feeling lost in conversations. The fear of not understanding a question or a statement began to fade, replaced by a growing confidence in his ability to follow dynamic dialogues effectively. The rhythm of the language began to feel intuitive to him, almost like a second heartbeat. He could anticipate sentence endings, recognize common filler words, and even pick up on subtle emotional cues conveyed through tone. This deeper understanding was empowering. The ultimate goal, how to talk to anyone in English, now felt within reach. His internal practice had prepared him, but the real test was external application. He knew he had to push past his comfort zone and engage with native speakers directly. Initial attempts were still nerve-wracking, his heart pounding fast before every interaction. But unlike before, he had the tools and the mental fortitude to push through. He reminded himself of his progress, drawing strength from his daily routines and small victories. He started with simple interactions, ordering coffee, asking for directions, making small talk in shops. These low-stakes conversations were perfect for building momentum and getting accustomed to real-time communication without overwhelming pressure. Focusing on conveying his message, not perfect grammar initially, became his strategy. He prioritized clear communication over flawless accuracy. This pragmatic approach reduced anxiety and allowed him to express himself more freely and confidently. Every small conversation was a victory, building confidence incrementally. A successful interaction, however brief, fueled his motivation for the next. He celebrated these tiny triumphs, recognizing that consistent effort, not perfection, led to true progress. He joined online language exchange groups, practicing with peers from around the world. These conversations, often informal and friendly, provided a safe space to experiment with new vocabulary and structures in a supportive environment, boosting his fluency. Mistakes were no longer failures, but opportunities for learning and refinement. He started viewing them as valuable feedback, guiding him towards more accurate and natural expression. This shift in mindset was crucial for his continuous improvement journey. His fluency noticeably improved. How to improve your fluency was no longer a theoretical question but a lived reality. Sentences flowed more smoothly, pauses were reduced, and he could retrieve words with increasing speed and precision during conversations. He could express complex ideas, joke, share personal stories, and truly connect with people from different backgrounds now. The language barrier that once defined his world had crumbled, replaced by bridges of communication and understanding, opening new horizons. Leo, once silent and inhibited, now conversed with ease and confidence. His journey, marked by consistent effort in reading, self-talk, vocabulary building, and listening, was a testament to perseverance. He had not just learned English, he had unleashed himself.